Walker when he becomes an unrestricted free agent Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern. After Shams Charania noted that Walker and the Hornets have reached a stalemate in their extension talks, Woj reported that Boston can continue to clear up some cap space, create a number that gets up to Kemba Walker's max, but right now Boston and Kemba Walker are focused on each other. And there's a very strong possibility that Kemba will replace Kyrie Irving as the point guard, as a centerpiece in Boston.
Now, Terry Rozier would probably have to go, but I got to be honest with you. If you look at Brad Stevens' history, college and pro, every point guard, including, by the way, Kyrie's numbers go up. If I'm Kemba Walker, and I've always thought about this, if I was a quarterback in high school, I would go play for Oklahoma because Lincoln Riley takes every quarterback and they explode. Like when you're there, like if I was a linebacker, I'd go play for Nick Saban because they always end up in the NFL. If I am a point guard, and I don't have to be the world's best point guard, but I want my numbers to go up, Mike D'Antoni and Brad Stevens, your numbers go up. They're good for guards.
If that's what you're mostly concerned about, the issue is Kemba would forfeit $81 million.
Yeah, don't love that.
To join the Celtics.
Don't love that.
That's a whole lot more than 40
yes.
or 30. That is a lot of money. Now, that's assuming that Charlotte is willing to offer the 5-year, $221 million max.
Now, that's the thing, Joy. They're not. So, like, from what I'm reading, they're not. They're much more comfortable in the 160, 170. So the $80 million is closer to 25.
Right. Well, if they're closer to the 160, 170, then that's good news for Boston because Boston can offer a 4-year, $140 million max. Although he might be willing to take less money because we talked about it yesterday. Kemba kind of disappears in Charlotte. Like he should be have a way bigger profile, and he would in Boston.
I saw more of him in college. Because when he was at UConn, I mean, seriously, the Big East tournament, the NCAA tournament, Kemba had a bigger profile as a collegian, it feels like to me, than he does as a pro.
And I do believe he would have a better chance of winning in Boston. Despite them having to move so many pieces around, I do think it's a better situation. So the Rockets have been in pursuit of Jimmy Butler for almost a year now. We all kind of forgot early last season they offered the Timberwolves 4 first-round draft picks for Butler. Remember that? I completely forgot about that. So they've been after him for a while. And this week it was reported that they're interested in a sign and trade with Philly. So the rumor mill will heat up even more when Woj reported that the Rockets are now offering Eric Gordon, Clint Capella, and P.J. Tucker to clear up cap space. They really want him. He's also from Houston.
I know, but I don't like it.
I do think that the locker room situation makes it interesting because that's a bunch of personalities, a bunch of strong personalities in one room. But you need stars to win in this league, and the Rockets have not been able to get it done. They're right there every single year, and they can't get over the hump. So they have to make some sort of move. And if you're going to make a move, you might as well get somebody who can also play defense because they're losing all their defense if they do move Clint Capella, P.J. Tucker, and Eric Gordon. Yeah, especially P.J. Tucker.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. I like Gordon and I like Tucker. I like them as players. That, by the way, those are the kind of guys that Toronto has won the title. It's a bunch of those smart veteran guys that can play big in the... You know, they have playoff experience.
No, they're huge X-factor pieces.
Yeah, I love those guys.
But they haven't been able to make the move. So I think that you have to be aggressive, especially this year, especially considering that Chris Paul and James Harden are it seems like this train can only go so much further. You got to be aggressive this year, especially with the Warriors kind of being out of commission. And finally, it didn't take long for Zion Williamson.
Welcome back, Doug Gottlieb. So the whole KD thing, you were asking me during the break, and we were talking about where guys are going. And the one guy that I guessed yesterday, I put jerseys on all the players. The one guy I put a question mark is Kevin Durant, because I think Kevin's really struggling. And I think Kevin is emotionally, Lee Jenkins told me this when he used to work at SI, now with the Clippers. He said he didn't want to give it away, but he said he's a wanderer. When you sit down and interview him for a couple of days, you follow him for a week. Marcus Thompson said this. You can convince Kevin Durant day to day to change his mind. He's just emotionally a wanderer. I honestly believe he doesn't have his mind made up. I think this is very much a LeBron leaving Cleveland, going to Miami, where I remember talking to people close to LeBron, and 72 hours out, they didn't know. Like his boys did not know. I think Kevin Durant right now, he's looking at the James Dolan. He's looking at Kyrie's kind of flaky. I mean, I really
plus it's the Nets, right? Like, do you really go to to live in Brooklyn, and Brooklyn is amazing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, to anybody who doesn't understand, Brooklyn has undergone this renaissance. It's an amazing place to live. That's an amazing arena. You know, they have incredible culture within that franchise, and they were absolute rubble before this current group took over, right?
Right.
So, like, all of that said, it's still the Nets. Like, they don't move the meter at all in New York, whereas the Knicks do anything, and they do. On the other hand, you're going to be the first one to play for the Knicks, and they're going to be bad for another year, and then you got to work for James Dolan, which I think a lot of these guys, that are, especially guys like Kevin Durant, that are so active on social media, that they kind of or overreact to the idea that Dolan is involved. Dolan has nothing to do with day-to-day basketball, but once a year he does something. You're like, oh yeah, James Dolan, the a-hole that still owns the New York Knicks, right?
By the way, Phil Jackson's a legend, bombed in New York. Larry Brown's second worst year in New York. Pat Riley won everywhere but the Knicks. Isaiah Thomas has succeeded everywhere. Bad Knicks day.
Yes.
They leave a stain. Mike D'Antoni, by the way, one in Italy, one in Phoenix, one in Houston.
Yes.
A mess in New York.
Yes, Pat Riley. Pat Riley, this guy, and Pat Riley and Jeff Van Gundy, and I know they went to one NBA Finals.
But it's
yes, and then there's been players, right? Amari Stoudemire and Penny Hardaway and Jason Kidd. Like, you go through them, you're like, they've had dudes. They just haven't been able to figure it out. Look, he's trying to figure out who he is. That's it. That's the thing. And I do think that's relatable. He doesn't necessarily know who he is, right? Grew up without a dad. Dad's kind of back into his life. But he has an agent who's a business manager. There's that weird relationship with Rich Kleinman, who, is a New Yorker, and I'm sure selling him on New York and all the virtues of New York. I do think there's this one interesting part, which we may be missing on. There's this kind of old school, widely held belief, and there's some reality to it, which is, hey, you do it in New York, and you're big everywhere.
Right.
Right? Like, Jeremy Lin is not Jeremy Lin if he didn't do it with the New York Knicks.
That's true.
It is true. On the other hand, like, you do realize that there's been a movement in real money is in Northern California.
Yes.
The most expensive city to live in the country is San Francisco. Why? Right. Because all that tech money, right? Like, in our industry, we're just waiting. When is Apple or Google going to decide, hey, I'm going to buy that?
No, listen, Jason Whitlock was on this 2 years ago. He said, really, the new power base, it's not New York. The media is largely, look at the algorithms. Look what our government is concerned about in terms of voting. They're concerned about Silicon Valley and information. It's become the new New York, San Francisco, and he's leaving that.
Yes, and you also, you don't actually need to go to New York to be big in the NBA, right? Big globally. Like, Russell Westbrook is in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
And he's huge. He's massive. Kawhi Leonard doesn't say a word, right? No one can, other than ha, ha, ha.
And he's
no
huge.
one can quote anything he said, but he's getting big. Why? Because he won. So I just, look, at the end of the day, if you're not happy in Golden State and you're pissed off because you think they misevaluated your calf strain,
right.
Probably had a partially torn Achilles tendon and they didn't find it. If you're mad, okay, I understand.
Yeah.
But if the idea is I need relevance, at the end of the day, if you come back in a year and Clay comes back in a year and you go out and win another couple of titles, who cares what they say on social media, what they say on all of our shows? You got 5-6 rings. You put yourself in elite company. And I think now everybody has realized just how important he is to the team and to the league. It'd be great. The NBA needs him in the East. They need a big name. They need a big story. They need the East to be relevant.
It's good for our show. It's good for our show.
But the idea that he needs it, I would disagree with.
So let's talk about a couple of things. In terms, I'll throw this out to you. So this is so funny to me. So Golden State during their dynasty was paying KD, Steph, Clay, Draymond, Iggy, even Sean Livingston made $8 million. They had enough money to add Boogie Cousins. Back-to-back Miami Heat dynasty. LeBron made 19, D-Wade 18, Chris Bosh 19. They paid Ray Allen, Battier, Udonis Haslem. Mike Miller made $5.8 million. Joel Anthony made $4 million. 8 guys made money. Okay. With the Lakers, they have only 5 guys on the roster and only $23 million left, and I'm told they can't afford another max, and if they do sign D'Angelo Russell for under the max, they'll be out of money. That tells me, despite what the Lakers and their PR people are shoving, they messed up the cap thing.
I don't think there's any doubt, but let's be honest about the Golden State thing, okay?
Yeah.
what helped them was Draymond was drafted in the second round, so there was a limit to what they could pay him. Steph Curry's second contract, was it 4 years, $44 million, because he had so many ankle problems. He didn't get the huge deal. And so that allowed them to go and make some of these other deals. And then once you have a player, now you can pay him whatever and go into luxury tax if you want. Whereas that's not the way it worked out in L.A. So, and there's still a chance here for a sign and trade, even with Kevin.